Hi, Capricorn. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for September of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julie Mijas in Pioneer, California.
Capricorn, this month's horoscope centers largely on the career arena for you. If you'd like more insight about your work life, you can find it in a mission orders reading, and you'll find a link for that in the text that comes with this video. But I want to start actually in the relationship department because I want to point to this Juno retrograde that's been going on since July. It'll continue until October, and this month there's an important milestone along Juno's retrograde journey. Now, Juno is an asteroid goddess to do with committed relationship, and that means contractual relationships, relationships that involve serious partnership, and they can be personal relationships or business ones. This particular Juno retrograde is taking us into an introspective, retrospective journey to ask ourselves, what is the deeper spiritual meaning behind my committed relationships? And are these relationships living into that meaning? And how might they in a better way? This Juno retrograde is happening in your third house, and so it may be stimulating a lot of conversation or even just a lot of thoughts inside your own mind about this, and you may be thinking hard about it, sort of in the background. Now, Juno retrograde is going to hit an important milestone on the 7th. The 7th of September right here, as it opposes the sun across the axis of communication, which is to say Juno's in the third house, which has to do with the communications with people right around you, or the ideas that you process in your own head, or the learning that you do. Whereas the 9th house is about bigger thoughts and bigger ideas, like your whole worldview and how you fit things together into a big picture. So this is a day when illumination can occur and clarity can occur. And this process of thinking into this has been going on since late July. And at this point, you can arrive at some pretty big insights about what you might do about what you're discovering, or just ideas coming together in your head about the relationship, your search for, deeper relationship meaning. I'm going to come back to this Juno retrograde in a little bit when I talk about the moons, but I do want to let you know right now that you can find out a lot more about this Juno retrograde period in the video that we made about it, which is found on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, in the 2022 news playlist there. But for now, I'm going to lob the conversational ball over to Julia, who has news about Mercury, Venus, and Mars.
Yes, I do. Well, hey there, Capricorn. The big news this month is that Mercury is going to go retrograde. He's also going to be in 2 houses of yours this month. So lots of Mercury activity. Mercury is a planet that represents the thinker in you. Wherever we have Mercury, we can spend a lot of mental energy. So Mercury starts the month in your 10th house. This is a career house. It represents sort of your overall life direction. And if that is aligned with what you do for a living, then it's also known as a career house as well. It's also a house of authority figures, basically anyone who tells you what to do, and it's a house of your public reputation. So Mercury in the 10th house can be a time where you're thinking a lot about your career. You're very preoccupied with it. If you do anything Mercury related at your job, that could be writing, speaking, teaching, buying and selling, being an agent, transportation, those types of things. This can be a busy time for you. Now, on September 10th, Mercury goes retrograde in this house. And when Mercury goes retrograde, this is a time of redo and review in career. So in your 10th house, this might be a month where you actually have a lot of miscommunications at the workplace, where especially with authority figures, if you have a boss or an employer, or if you're just going to school and your parents are still a big part of your life, that could totally happen with your parents too. And Mercury retrograde in the 10th can be a time where you might be rethinking or redoing some projects at work. Or if you're unemployed right now and looking for a job, maybe you're having to go over and re-edit your resume or rethink your entire strategy for getting the new one. This is also the house of your public reputation too. So there might also be some other squirreliness that might come up with your reputation, maybe people getting the wrong idea about you and you having to go back and kind of sort them out. Now, September 22nd is an important day to keep track of. It's known as Lesser Epiphany Day. That's when the Sun and Mercury are exactly conjoined each other in the sky. Now, it's lesser versus greater because Mercury is retrograde during this day, and greater epiphany is going to happen on later in the year when Mercury is conjoined the Sun while direct. So anyway, these epiphany days are times of clarification and insight. And in the 10th house, these insights could be coming from your career. Maybe you're like, oh, now I know how to tweak this project after reviewing it for a while. Or if you're looking for a new job, you can get some clarity about your strategy and how to move forward. And also perhaps clarity into the miscommunications you have been having at the workplace or with authority figures. Now, on September 23rd, this retrograding Mercury is going to dip back into your 9th house. This is a travel house, and Mercury is a travel planet. So if you are planning any trips, this can be a time of having to redo some of your plans. And if you are traveling this month, then you can expect some delays and squirreliness along the way with Mercury retrograde in your 9th. This whole cycle is going to be finishing up next month on October 2nd. So pay attention to our next month's video because then we'll let you know how that's going to feel. Now I have a few nice things to say about Venus. She's the planet of art, beauty, and relationships. Wherever we have her, we get more pleasure and even a little bit of luck. Early on in the month, September 4th, Venus enters your 9th house. Again, this is a house of travel. This is a house of education. This is a house of legal affairs. Also religion too. If you are a religious type, if you go to church, temple, or an ashram, that would be represented by this house. So Venus in the 9th house is a time of finding a lot of pleasure, perhaps in travel. Even if there's some delays and squirreliness along the way, like it's still going to be a pleasurable trip once you finally get there. Venus in the 9th house can also be a time, if you're involved in any legal affairs, where more diplomacy, maybe more mediation comes in there that works to your benefit. And since the 9th house can also represent religion, if you do consider yourself religious, then this can be a time of getting along well with your religious community when you go to church or when you go to temple. And if you are single, this can be a time when you might get a crush on somebody, such as a foreigner or somebody who comes from a really different background than you. You know, you might be drawn to people who are different from you in those ways, maybe ethnically, maybe from a country they're from. Now, I do have a few things to say about Mars. Mars is going to have a real interesting time for the rest of the year because he's going to have his retrograde cycle next month, which means that this month he's slowing down in the sky. So this is all going to be taking place in your 6th house. This is a work house, a health house, a house of routines and organization. Mercury's going to be, Mars is going to be hanging out in your 6th for a little while. So Mars is the planet of action, activity. Wherever we have Mars, we expend a lot of energy. So with Mars in the 6th, you could be feeling really driven at your job, really energized by it. But Mars can also have a bit of a feisty side to him too. So this can be a time of frustrations at work, not seeing eye to eye with clients, customers, coworkers, or your boss too. And since this is also a health house, a house of routine, you could feel really motivated motivated to start some routines, especially physical ones. This is a great time to just kind of get out there and like start a great physical regimen and keep with it over the next 6 months, or not 6 months, few months while Mars is going to be in this house. So Mars in the sixth house, because this is a health house, can be a time where chronic stuff can start acting up a little bit. You know, Mars can represent blood. So if you have anemia, if you have other types of blood stuff, that stuff might be acting up a little bit. It's also a planet that can represent inflammation too. So sometimes that stuff, as along with headaches and things of that nature, can start being a little bit more irritating and frustrating as well. But since it is in the sixth house of routine, you know, try to see if you can set some great routines to try to support your health, because that's definitely the more constructive side of this transit.
Yeah, Julia, that sounds so important, because I would think with Mars being about to go retrograde in that sixth house, that if there's any kind of chronic condition already in place, that it could become acute and sort of force a resolution. And so, you know, putting better health practices into place, especially if you were supposed to do that and you've been deferring to that, procrastinating that. Yeah, that's a real watch out there. Absolutely. So then we've got a couple of moons to talk about and a seasonal change. The first one is a full moon here with the sun placed in Virgo opposite the moon in Pisces, hanging out with Juno here in the third house. And with Juno so close to this moon, that really brings Juno's relationship retrospection themes into this particular moon. So we're calling this one Reimagine Relationships, but Face Pragmatic Facts. And that's because the sun in Pisces opposite the moon in Virgo is a real balancing act between dreams versus reality. Now, Juno retrograde in Pisces may be pulling you into your imagination and having lots of thoughts in your head about how your relationship could be and relating to it in an ideal way. But this sun in Virgo is pulling you out to look at the reality of the big picture and ask yourself, well, you know, how is that going to play out in everyday life where the rubber hits the road? So that's a really big factor that can come up during this full moon, which does happen really close to the commitment clarity day that I spoke of on September 7th, where some real clarity may land on your head about this relationship retrospection period. So then the sun is going to continue along through Virgo and finish out Virgo right about here on September 23rd, right there. It moves into Libra, into your 10th house. And this is the seasonal change, the beginning of the season of Libra, which brings the sun into your 10th house of career, of authority, of the things that you build and the legacy that you can leave behind. And wherever the sun goes, we want to bring the sunlight of our high quality attention so that things can flourish there. And also, shortly after the sun arrives here, the moon joins the sun in a new moon right here on September 25th and really adds to the sun's themes here. So this is a really good month starting on the 23rd when the sun enters in here, going for about 30 days. It's a really good month for attending to and growing and nourishing with sunlight your career arena and your relationships with authorities in general and the authority inside yourself. Now, new moons, and this one happens on the 25th, a couple days after the sun enters into this house. New moons are times for the planting of seeds, for new beginnings. And this particular one we're calling calculated diplomacy versus boundless enthusiasm, because the diplomacy part is the fact that the moon is in Libra. So planting seeds of diplomacy. And Mercury is nearby in Virgo during this moon, and that's the calculated part because Mercury in Virgo is very analytical, so there's a lot of thought built into this moon. But there's another factor, which is Jupiter all the way over here, traveling along your fourth house And that's a wonderful transit. Jupiter in your fourth house is great because Jupiter loves to be in the fourth house. It's exalted in the fourth house. And this can bring such wonderful feelings to your home life, a wonderful expansion to your home. And Jupiter will be spending much of the year passing along through your fourth house. Jupiter is in Aries, and I've come to see this as being kind of like a very enthusiastic and largish golden retriever that just bounded up to you and is knocking you over and like licking your whole face. That's Jupiter in Aries. And so while that energy is going on in your home life, like maybe you get home and your kids pile on top of you and you're like really happy to see them, but you just had a really great insight about your career and you'd like to write it down, but while you're piled all over with children. So that experience could happen on September 25th and under this new moon. And definitely it's important to plant those seeds, even though your home life might really be, calling to you under this moon. Well, that's what we have for you today, Capricorn. Hope you enjoyed it. You can always find this horoscope and your other horoscope on the horoscopes page on our website, pandoraastrology.com. And by other horoscope, I mean your rising sign horoscope, if this isn't it, because your rising sign horoscope will work a lot better. So I do encourage you to look that up if you haven't already. And if you want a reading out of this horoscope, like that Mission Orders career reading that I mentioned, check out the types of readings tab on our website. And if you want to know more about this month's moons, you can check out the forecast page. And if you want to look into that Juno retrograde, go over to our YouTube channel and check out our 2022 news playlist where you'll find out all about that. And until next time, I'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.